Hey YouTube, this is Diaphone. I asked some of the strongest players in Strive today to answer this question. What is the #1 tip you would give the tournament level players in order to win more in Strive? So take a few minutes and think about how you answer this question. And if you have a good response that's not in the video, please share in the comments below. And shoutouts to all the players that answer these questions. Seriously, they're all godlike. Go follow them on social media. Links are in the description below. And as always, if you appreciate the content, please consider sharing, and subscribing. It means a lot to me. When I compiled these results, I found them really interesting. You know, honestly, I thought a lot of people were gonna say like, just pick soul or, do some broken stuff. But most of the answers were actually around how to mentally approach the game. They, actually apply to most fighting games. I found that really cool and really insightful just from that. It goes to show you the importance of fundamentals and having a strong mental game. There's also a few answers specific to Strive. Check this timestamps below. I kind of split up into a few different sections. So let's start with Tempest. Tempest is a very strong mate player. He says not to get tilted, and even in a dire situation, never give up. So I feel like both of these are kind of cliche advice, but they're also so important and so good. And the better you can understand this advice, I think the better you'll play. And never give up is important in any fighting game, but especially Strive. Even if you don't win, you may be able to like bait a burst out from the opponent, or you can just learn additional information you can use the next round or the next game. Not the getting tilted is obviously essential, and actually a lot of people talk about this. Fame96, very strong Nagiyuki, talks about this as well. He says to take your time in between matches. That time is what you use to break down the data you were given and to regain your composure. And to elaborate on that a little bit, he says make sure to breathe, looking back in the match if needed, taking a drink of water to rehydrate if you have it. A lot of people kind of get into a routine. Some people just hammer on the X button, and sometimes that's not the best, especially if you're not in the right mental state. So for me, I religiously chug water during a tournament set or any set where I'm trying to play my best. So just in general, try to avoid being on tilt, right? Being on tilt is bad for learning. Don't play on tilt if you can avoid it. Take a walk, take a break. If you're playing on tilt, you're not going to be learning as effectively as you should be, or you're not going to be playing as good as you should be. So figure out what works best for you and apply it. Supernoon, very strong RAM, had pretty similar advice. Essentially, he said focus on what you can control instead of what you can't control, and looking at the game with an objective lens. So for example, I see a lot of people get tilted about character balance, or like soul's broken, or this move's too good, or oh, the online's laggy. But these are all things you can't really control, right? Unless you're GGST. So instead, focus on what you can do in the match and how you can win in the here and now, and focus on what you can do. Supernoon also made a really offhanded comment, but I thought it was really insightful. He says he feels like he's able to beat stronger players than him due to having a stronger, superior mental game, which just kind of shows you the importance of advice. So he thinks he's worse on the technical side, but better on the mental side, and that's kind of what helps him push through and get his tournament wins. So as Sonicsol, of course, I had to ask the fellow Ina boys, and he said kind of the same thing. Managing mental state when playing is #1, specifically around nerves and anxiety. This is paraphrased a little bit, but he basically says make sure you're prepared. Tournaments are like a public presentation or speech, exam, or a test of your knowledge. The more you know about a subject or the game, the more you'll feel confident and the better you'll do. Preparedness is crucial. And he also said learn to play in the moment is key. This is kind of same guidelines of being objective and not being on tilt. You won't win every match, but you should always have the mindset to do your best and learn from each experience. Bruce Lee, the legend, always said people are quick to learn the way to win, but never the way to lose. To learn how to die is to be liberated of it. Focus on the moment itself, or you'll miss out on all the match's heavenly glory, which is just an absolutely godlike quote. Deb, very strong soul player, also had an extension of this, basically said learning to accept losses is the key to growth. Specifically, she said mentality is key for long-term growth. I'd say remember that in order to truly grow as a player, you have to accept that losing is a part of the experience, and it helps you make meaningful growth. Don't option select and blame other stuff. Seriously look at the matches you lose and review them critically. You want to seriously compete, understanding that is important. So I totally agree. I think this ties in with a Supernoon saying about being objective and focusing on what you can control. Yes, soul chip or whoever might be really strong, but it's never the sole reason you lost a match. And focus on what you can improve. And even if a set is 3-2 and you drop one combo and that's what makes you lose the match, more often than not, there's a number of different things you could have done better except that one drop combo. Work on those things as well, right? Don't just blame the one drop combo because of lag or whatever else happened. RTW, another very strong May, had pretty similar advice to this. Basically said watch replays of your tournament matches, win or lose, find spots you have difficulty in, and spend time in the lab looking for solutions. This is one of the things that mid-level players tend to skip, and I understand why. I think it I know it sucks watching replays, especially after a hard loss, or you may think that you already know the reason you lost, but it's important to make you a stronger player. And from personal experience, I always pick up something new from watching my replays. So if you haven't watched your replays, or you do it very sparingly, consider trying it again and taking notes from it and seeing what you can get at. Or if you have trouble looking at replays, ask a friend or ask for someone else to take a look with you, and maybe they can kind of help you out and figure out how you should look at replays better. And Kendeep, again another Eno boy, had very similar comments to several players here. Basically, in summary, look at your matches objectively, don't care as much about winning or losing, instead focus on what you can take away, don't let wins inflate your ego. The one separate piece of advice he gave was focusing on having a specific goal of the match outside of winning or losing. So for example, practicing a new setup or making correct wall break decisions. So the success of the match prioritizes learning instead of winning or losing. And this is something called deliberate practice. And if you look at like optimal learning, this term comes up a lot, and I really like this advice, because I think if you're trying to learn effectively, you should be focusing on specific things to implement into your gameplay. LordKnight also focuses on the improvement aspect. He says it would be without a doubt to make sure you have a lot of experience versus the meta characters, so that you don't get oops by one of them, which is a great term, by the way. So it makes sense to me. Focus your time on the most common matchups and you'll get more reward for your time. Especially early in the game cycle or a new patch, for example. Focusing on what you're going to see in tournament is going to be the most valuable use of your time. No point in labbing at the Faust matchup or whoever obscure character when you can spend it, really digging into the soul matchup or whoever the meta character is at the time, because that's most likely what you're going to be playing against, right? So SQ gave me one mentality and one gameplay tip. So I think this is a good segue into the gameplay section. So mentality wise, she says confidence is key. She says your strategy doesn't matter much if you aren't going to play like yourself in the first place. Tournament sets is like a mental battle, both players trying to stay focused while trying to mentally guard break their opponent at the same time. If you don't have that confidence, you're going to lose that mental battle, right? How do you build this confidence? Kind of what I got from SQ: believe in your training and force your opponent to adapt to your game plan instead of worrying about what the opponent's going to do. And gameplays wise, she says, I would say believe in your 6P more. I feel like a lot of people do not trust their 6Ps, but they are very strong. You beat a lot of people just by anti-airing, especially in a tournament where people get shook easily. I second this. I think a lot of people, especially if they're nervous, they'll just start IEDing in, or they'll start to take risks to get in. And if you're confident and you can hold your ground and you can react with the 6P, even though you might not get that much damage off it, you get all the momentum in your favor. Typically you get Oki, and then you can kind of just win the match from 1-6P, because Strive does crazy amount of damage, right? Hotashi, Evo champ, of course, has a couple gameplay tips. Basically, don't tech grabs. Whenever you would attempt to tech a grab, try and backdash that situation instead. Backdashing gives you crazy amount of damage. Throw recovery's counter hit, you can typically get a big combo for it. If you tech a grab, you're just kind of reset to neutral, and the tech window is only like 5 frames, I believe. That's really not worth it in this game. Jumping your grab's also an option as well. So yeah, I purposely almost never tech. In general, if I am going to be throwing, and you guys have probably seen Hotashi's match against Sonicsol, there's a lot of defensive throws, but that's different than teching, right? It's trying to catch them out of something that might not be a true meaty, or it might be trying to catch them because they think they're going to burst or do a super or something. That's different than teching grab. That's a defensive throw. If you think they're going to grab, don't go for a throw. Go for something like a backdash or jump. The other advice he gives is you don't always have to wall break and return to neutral. Sometimes that might be what the opponent wants. So I totally agree. I actually have a video of this on my channel in the description below. Check that out if you want more information. But the rule of thumb is to put yourself in the opponent's shoes. Think, if you were them, would you want to return to neutral, or are you okay not taking the wall break, right? If I have a DPRC, yeah, please don't send me to neutral. I'm just going to get you off of me right away. So think about what the opponent wants and act accordingly. So KizzieKay, the Kai Lord himself, says when you realize something works versus the opponent, hold that information until you're about to win rather than using it frequently and your opponent figures out. So this is something that I never do. But basically it's giving your opponent false information so you can capitalize on it when it matters. Oftentimes I'll use up information I got in a round in order to secure a perfect, which you don't really need, right? Or to secure a match that I don't really need, instead of saving it for a better opportunity or a clutch situation. I think this is great advice, something I'm still working on implementing myself. And I want to give a couple of gameplay tips of my own just because to balance out the video a little bit. Honestly, I thought everyone was going to give me gameplay tips and I was going to be the lone person being like, mentality is so important. So I'm really glad people value mentality as much as I do. Make sure you learn your option selects, especially the PRC throw option select. Crazy how many people don't do this. Links in the description below for that option select and other option selects as well. The other thing is make sure you use gold burst. Seriously, I think gold burst is overpowered, especially for characters without a meterless DP. You know, even if it's baited, it's harder to punish than your regular burst, and you don't even lose all your burst meter. Reward's crazy. It's 100 meter, which a lot of characters can use very effectively and kind of just changes the tide of the whole match if you hit one gold burst. I try to use it early as well, so you have the potential to get more than one burst per round. But of course, you don't want to be too predictable with it. You don't always have to do it on wake up though. You can do it on reaction to moves like a bandit bringer that are hard to stop and are going to put you in a pretty bad situation regardless. And instead of being put in a bad situation, you get 100 meter and you get the initiative, right? Also, fun fact, after throw, supers, wall break, and dust combos, you can't OTG burst. So the main disadvantage of gold burst is timing it. You know, if you time it early, it's going to be a blue burst most likely. But after these knockdowns, it's way easier because you do it early and nothing comes out. As always, if you appreciate the content, please consider like, sharing, and subscribing. I also stream on Twitch, typically every Wednesday and Friday, and for some tournaments throughout the week or weekend. So check out if you want to see me live or you want to ask questions. And if you like the advice these players give you, seriously, show these guys some love. Links in the description below. Anyways, thanks so much for watching and have a great day.